The alarm's shrill cry pierced through Kai's dreams like a plasma drill through hull plating. Red numbers glowed mockingly from his bedside display. 7:47. His shift started at 8 o'clock. Damn it, he muttered, rolling out of his narrow bunk aboard the Meridian Research Station. His engineering uniform lay crumpled on the floor, where he'd dropped it after yesterday's 14-hour shift in the reactor core. The smell of recycled air and metal polish filled his nostrils. As he stumbled toward his small closet, Kai had been an engineer on deep space stations for 3 years now, but he'd never gotten used to the artificial day cycles. His body still craved the natural rhythms of Earth, something he'd left behind when he signed up for this assignment in the Outer Rim territories. He grabbed his towel and hygiene kit, deciding a quick shower would help him wake up. The communal facilities were usually empty at this hour anyway. Most of the crew preferred evening showers after their shifts. His bare feet slapped against the cold metal flooring as he hurried down the corridor, passing the large viewport that showed the swirling nebula beyond. The shower area was a practical space with individual stalls arranged around a central changing area. Steam sensors activated automatically as Kai pushed through the entrance, and he tossed his towel onto a bench before stepping under the warm spray. The water pressure was decent for a space station, and he let out a relieved sigh as the heat worked the tension from his shoulders. He was halfway through washing his hair when he heard voices, melodic, unfamiliar voices speaking in what sounded like synchronized harmony. Kai froze, soapsuds dripping down his face. The station had been buzzing about their special visitors for weeks, the first official diplomatic contact with the Zephyrian species. But surely they wouldn't be in the crew quarters? Through the frosted partition, he could make out two figures, moving in the changing area. Their silhouettes were distinctly humanoid, but with an otherworldly grace that made his breath catch. Before he could call out or retreat further into his stall, the figures came into clearer view. Two women, or at least beings that appeared feminine, stood in the changing area. Their skin had a pale purple hue that seemed to shimmer slightly under the overhead lights, and both had the same striking blonde curly hair that cascaded past their shoulders. They were identical in every way he could see, from their height to their delicate facial features to their lean, athletic builds. What struck him most wasn't just their appearance, but their reaction to seeing him, instead of the shocked embarrassment he expected. Both aliens stopped mid-conversation and simply stared, their large, violet eyes fixed on him with an intensity that was both curious and analytical, as if they were studying a fascinating piece of art. Kai grabbed for his towel, his face burning with embarrassment. "I'm sorry, I didn't know anyone else was," but the twins didn't look away. If anything, they stepped closer to the partition, their heads tilting in unison like birds examining something particularly interesting. One of them spoke in accented English, her voice carrying that same melodic quality he'd heard before. "Fascinating," she murmured to her companion. "The muscular definition is quite different from our anatomical studies suggested." The other nodded solemnly. "And the emotional response, see how the skin changes color. The increased heart rate is visible in the neck pulse." Kai stood frozen, towel clutched around his waist, uncertain whether he was the victim of some elaborate prank or if he'd stumbled into a diplomatic incident that could end his career. The twins continued their quiet observation, completely unashamed of their intense scrutiny. "Should we leave?" he managed to ask. Both aliens blinked in surprise, as if the thought hadn't occurred to them. "Why would we leave?" one asked genuinely. "This is a moment of unprecedented cultural exchange." Kai's hands trembled as he pressed the calm button outside Commander Tora's office. The morning's shower incident had left him shaken, confused, and desperately in need of guidance. He'd managed to slip away from the twins after mumbling something about being late for his shift, but their intense violet eyes had followed him in his memory all morning. "Enter," came Tora's gruff voice. The commander was a weathered woman in her 50s, with steel-gray hair and the kind of steady presence that came from decades of handling impossible situations. She looked up from her datapad as Kai stepped inside, immediately noting his nervous energy. "Rodriguez, you look like you've seen a ghost. What's the problem?" Kai shifted uncomfortably. "Ma'am, I need to report an incident with our guests. This morning in the communal showers, I accidentally encountered the Zephyrian diplomats, and he paused, struggling to find the right words. They behaved inappropriately. Torres leaned back in her chair, one eyebrow raised. Inappropriately how? They stared at me, ma'am. When I was undressed, they wouldn't look away, and they were discussing my anatomy like I was some kind of specimen. To Kai's surprise, Torres didn't look angry or concerned. Instead, she let out a long sigh and activated her desk display. Rodriguez, have you read the cultural briefing files on the Zephyrians? I skimmed them. But that's your problem right there. Torres pulled up a detailed cultural profile. The Zephyrian species has a fundamentally different relationship with physical forms than we do to them. The body is considered the highest form of artistic expression. When Vera and Naya were observing you, they weren't being perverted or inappropriate. They were showing you the deepest form of respect their culture recognizes. Kai felt his face flush again. Respect in their society. To study someone's physical form is to acknowledge their beauty and perfection as a living being. It's considered one of the highest honors. Torres scrolled through the files. The fact that they didn't immediately avert their eyes means they found you aesthetically remarkable. Before Kai could process this information fully, his calm unit chimed with an incoming message. Torres glanced at her own display and smiled slightly. Speaking of our guests, they've requested a meeting with you specifically. They're waiting in conference room C. Kai's stomach dropped. Am I in trouble? Quite the opposite, I think. Go on, Rodriguez, and this time, try to keep an open mind about cultural differences. The walk to conference room C felt like a march to his execution. Kai paused outside the door, taking a deep breath before entering. The twins were seated at the oval table, both wearing elegant flowing robes in deep blue that complemented their purple skin. They rose in unison as he entered, their movements graceful and synchronized. Engineer Rodriguez, the first twin said, stepping forward with a small, wrapped package in her hands. I am Vera, and this is my sister Naya. We wish to offer our deepest apologies for this morning's misunderstanding. Naya nodded, her curly blonde hair catching the room's soft lighting. We did not realize that humans experience distress when their physical forms are appreciated without invitation. In our culture, such moments are celebrated. Vera extended the package toward Kai. This is a traditional gift of apology from our home world. It contains crystals that sing when touched by starlight, a reminder that beauty exists in many forms. Kai accepted the gift, surprised by its weight and the warmth emanating from within. Thank you, but you really don't need to apologize. I think I was just surprised. May we ask you something? Naya's violet eyes met his directly. In human culture, when do beings find each other aesthetically pleasing? How do they express this appreciation? The question caught Kai off guard. Well, we usually get to know each other first, talk, share experiences, maybe go on dates. Vera tilted her head curiously. Spending time together, sharing meals, learning about each other's interests and personalities. Kai found himself warming to the topic despite his initial nervousness. Physical attraction is just the beginning. Humans bond through emotional connection. The twins exchanged a glance that seemed to carry an entire conversation. Naya leaned forward slightly. This emotional bonding, it creates pleasure? Different kinds of pleasure, yes. Emotional intimacy can be just as powerful as physical attraction. Vera's eyes lit up with fascination. We would very much like to learn more about these human customs. Would you be willing to teach us? Looking at their eager, innocent faces, Kai felt something shift inside him. The morning's awkwardness was transforming into something else entirely. A genuine curiosity about these remarkable beings who saw beauty, where he'd only seen embarrassment. I'd be honored to, he said, meaning it completely. 3 weeks had passed since the shower incident, and Kai found himself looking forward to his daily cultural exchange sessions with Vera and Naya. What had begun as awkward diplomatic necessity had evolved into something he couldn't quite define. The twins had been granted an extended stay to study human customs, and they'd specifically requested him as their primary liaison. Today's session was in the station's observation lounge, a comfortable space with large viewports showing the nebula's swirling colors. Vera and Naya sat on either side of him on the curved sofa, their presence creating a warmth that had nothing to do with the room's climate control. "Today we wish to understand human pair bonding rituals," Naya announced, her melodic voice carrying that familiar note of scientific curiosity. "We have observed crew members engaging in what appears to be recreational physical contact." Kai nearly choked on his coffee. "You mean kissing?" "Yes, this kissing," Vera nodded eagerly. "We have studied the mechanics, but we do not understand the emotional component. How does pressing mouth parts together create the bonding you described?" "It's not just the physical act," Kai explained, trying to maintain his composure. "It's about trust, vulnerability, sharing something intimate with someone you care about." The twins leaned closer, their attention completely focused on him. Kai had grown accustomed to their intense way of listening, but today it felt different, more personal somehow. "But how do you know when it is appropriate to attempt this kissing?" Naya asked. "What signals indicate mutual desire?" Kai found himself studying their faces, noting the way their violet eyes seemed to shimmer with more than just curiosity. Usually there are signs, prolonged eye contact, standing closer than necessary, unconscious touching, as if to demonstrate. Vera's hand brushed against his as she reached for her data pad. The contact sent an unexpected jolt through him, and he noticed she didn't immediately pull away. "Like this?" she asked softly, her fingers intertwining with his. Kai's breath caught. The touch was electric, sending warmth racing up his arm. "Yes, but Vera, we should be careful. This is supposed to be professional. Is it unprofessional to acknowledge attraction?" Naya moved closer on his other side, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Because we have observed many changes in your behavior toward us. Your heart rate increases when we enter a room. Your pupils dilate when you look at us. Your skin temperature rises when we are near." Kai turned to look at her, suddenly very aware of how close she was. "You've been monitoring my vital signs. We are naturally attuned to such things," Vera explained, her thumb tracing gentle patterns on his hand. "It is part of how we read emotional states, and your emotional state has been quite intense when you are with us. What we do not understand," Naya continued, "is why you seem to be fighting these feelings. In our culture, attraction is explored, openly celebrated." Kai felt caught between them, their alien beauty and innocent curiosity creating a tension he'd never experienced before. "Because this is complicated. You're diplomats. I'm just an engineer. There are protocols, regulations. But underneath all those human rules," Vera's voice was barely audible. "What do you want?" The question hung in the air between them like a challenge. Kai looked from one twin to the other, seeing not just curiosity now but something deeper, a longing that mirrored his own growing feelings. "I want to understand you," he admitted quietly. "Both of you. Not just your culture, but you." Naya's free hand came up to touch his cheek, her skin surprisingly warm despite its purple hue. "Then understand this. On our world, when three beings feel such strong connection, they explore it together. There's no shame, no rules forbidding the heart's desires. But we're different species," Kai protested weakly, even as he leaned into her touch. "Are we so different?" Vera asked, bringing their joined hands to rest over his heart. "We breathe the same air. We share the same emotions. We want the same things." The nebula outside the viewport pulsed with brilliant colors, painting the room in ethereal light. In that moment, surrounded by their warmth and genuine affection, Kai felt something inside him break free from the constraints he'd built around his heart. "Show me," he whispered, his resolve finally crumbling. "Show me how your people express these feelings." The twins exchanged one of their silent communications, and then Naya leaned forward, her lips barely brushing against his. The kiss was soft, tentative, filled with wonder rather than passion. When she pulled back, her eyes were wide with amazement. The emotional transfer, she breathed. "I can feel what you feel." Vera's turn was different, deeper, more confident, as if she'd learned from watching her sister. When they separated, all three of them were breathing harder, the air between them charged with new possibilities. "This is just the beginning," Vera whispered, her violet eyes dark with promise. "There's so much more we wish to learn." The next few days passed in a haze of stolen moments and growing desire. Kai found himself thinking about the twins constantly, replaying their first kiss and wondering what came next. The station's routine continued around him, but he felt as though he was living in a bubble separate from everyone else. It was Naya who initiated their next encounter. She appeared at his quarters after his evening shift, wearing a simple white dress that seemed to glow against her purple skin. "We have been thinking," she said without preamble as he led her inside, "about human intimacy, about the progression of physical bonding." Kai's small quarters suddenly felt even smaller with her presence filling the space. "Naya, we should talk about what happened the other day. Vera is coming," she interrupted gently. "We decided we should explore these feelings together, as is our way." As if summoned by her words, the door chimed and Vera entered, wearing an identical white dress. The twins moved to flank him, their synchronized movements both familiar and hypnotic. "We have been researching human intimacy," Vera said, her voice carrying a new note of confidence. "We understand that physical pleasure is an important component of bonding, but research can only teach us so much," Naya added, reaching out to touch his arm. "We need practical experience." Kai's heart hammered against his ribs. "Are you sure about this? Once we cross this line, we can't go back." "We do not wish to go back," Vera said firmly. "We wish to go forward with you." She moved closer, her hands coming up to frame his face. This time when she kissed him, there was nothing tentative about it. Her lips moved against his with growing confidence, and he felt himself responding despite his lingering reservations. Naya's hands slipped around his waist from behind, her body warm against his back. "Is this how humans show affection?" she murmured against his neck, her breath sending shivers down his spine. "One way," he managed to reply, his voice rough with desire. "Show us others," Vera whispered against his lips. What followed was a slow, careful exploration of boundaries and desires. Kai found himself both teacher and student as the twins learned about human pleasure, while showing him their own unique responses. Their skin seemed to shimmer more brightly when aroused, and they communicated through touch in ways that went beyond the physical. "Your species experiences pleasure so differently than ours," Naya observed breathlessly as they moved together, on his narrow bed. "More intense, more consuming." "How do your people?" Kai asked, trailing off as Vera's skilled hands made coherent thought difficult. "We share energy directly," Vera explained, her violet eyes glowing in the dim light. "Like this." She placed her palm flat against his chest, and suddenly Kai could feel not just his own arousal, but theirs as well. A triple feedback loop of pleasure and emotion that threatened to overwhelm him. "Too much?" Naya asked, noticing his stunned expression. "No," he gasped. "Perfect. You're both perfect." The hours that followed blurred together in a symphony of whispered endearments, gentle touches, and discoveries that transcended species boundaries. When they finally collapsed together in exhausted contentment, Kai felt fundamentally changed. "This connection we have formed," Vera said quietly, her head pillowed on his shoulder while Naya curved against his other side. "It is permanent for our kind." "What do you mean?" Kai asked, though part of him already knew. "We have bonded with you," Naya explained, her fingers tracing patterns on his chest. "In our culture, when three beings share energy, as we have, they become, what is your word, family?" Kai felt a flutter of panic. "But your diplomatic mission will end eventually," Vera finished, "and we will have to return to our home world." The thought of losing them sent an ache through his chest. That had nothing to do with their recent exertions. "How long do we have?" 3 more months, Naya said softly. Unless what?" The twins exchanged one of their meaningful looks. "Unless we find a reason to extend our stay permanently," Vera said carefully. "Is that what you want?" Kai asked, hardly daring to hope. "We want to be wherever you are," Naya replied simply. "The question is, do you want the same?" Looking down at their beautiful faces, their alien features made familiar through intimacy and affection, Kai knew his answer without hesitation. "Yes," he whispered, "more than anything." The discovery came by accident. Kai was helping the twins prepare their final diplomatic reports when he noticed something unusual. In their data files, instead of the dry, clinical observations he expected, their reports read like love letters to humanity, and to him. Specifically, Subject 7 Alpha continues to demonstrate remarkable adaptability in cross-species emotional bonding. He read aloud from Naya's personal log. His capacity for empathy and physical affection exceeds all previous projections. Vera looked up. From her own work, a slight flush darkening her purple cheeks. You were not supposed to see those files. These aren't just diplomatic reports, Kai realized. Scrolling through pages of detailed observations about human culture, emotion, and intimacy. You're proposing something to your government. We are proposing a permanent cultural exchange program, Naya admitted, moving to stand beside him, with specific recommendations for expanded interspecies cooperation. And you're recommending yourselves as permanent ambassadors, Kai said, understanding dawning. We are recommending that further study of human bonding rituals requires long-term observation, Vera corrected with a smile, specifically. The study of polyamorous relationships between humans and Zephyrians. Kai felt his heart leap. You're trying to find a way to stay. We are trying to find a way to build a life with you, Naya said softly, if you want that too. Before he could answer, his comm unit chimed with an urgent message from Commander Torres. The twins' transport ship had arrived ahead of schedule. They were being summoned home immediately. The next few hours passed in a blur of frantic activity. The twins packed their belongings, while Kai tried to process the reality of losing them. When they met in the docking bay for their final goodbye, the weight of their impending separation hung heavy in the recycled air. This is not how it was supposed to end, Vera said, her violet eyes bright with unshed tears. It doesn't have to end, Kai said desperately. I could request a transfer to your system, or your species is not ready for such arrangements. Naya interrupted gently, and our government has not yet approved our proposal. The transport ship's captain, a tall Zephyrian male with silver hair, approached their group. Vera, Naya, we must depart within the hour. Captain Theron, Vera said formally, we request an audience with you regarding our diplomatic findings. The captain's expression remained neutral, but Kai caught the slight tilt of his head that seemed to indicate curiosity. What findings? We have discovered that successful long-term relations between our species require extended cultural immersion, Naya explained, her diplomatic training evident in her measured tone. Our preliminary research indicates that a permanent exchange program would benefit both civilizations, and you volunteer to remain as permanent observers? Theron asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. We volunteer to continue our research, Vera said carefully. With Engineer Rodriguez as our primary human subject, Kai stepped forward. Captain, I know this is unconventional, but what they've learned here could change everything between our peoples, the connection we've formed. It's proof that our species can not only coexist but thrive together. Theron studied the three of them with an intensity that reminded Kai of the twins' first examination of him. You have formed a triad bond, he observed finally. Yes, both twins replied in unison. And you, human, you accept this bond freely, more than accept it, Kai said firmly. I can't imagine my life without them. The captain was quiet for a long moment, his silver eyes moving between them. Finally, he nodded slowly. I will convey your request to the High Council until they reach a decision. You will remain here to continue your research. As Theron walked away, Kai felt the twins' hands slip into his on either side. The relief was overwhelming, but he knew this was just the beginning of their challenges. What if they say no? He asked quietly. Then we will find another way, Vera said with quiet determination. Love this strong does not recognize the boundaries of governments or species. Besides, Naya added with a mischievous smile, we have made significant progress in our understanding of human emotional bonding. I believe our research requires much more hands-on investigation. That night, as they lay entwined in Kai's quarters, watching the nebulous colors shift beyond the viewport, Kai marveled at how much his life had changed. What had begun as an embarrassing accident had become the foundation of something extraordinary. A love that transcended species, a bond that could reshape the future of two civilizations. Do you ever regret oversleeping that morning? Vera asked softly, her head on his shoulder. Never, Kai replied, pulling both twins closer. Best mistake I ever made, outside. The stars wheeled in their eternal dance, bearing witness to a love story that proved the universe was far more wondrous and connected than anyone had dared to imagine, and somewhere in the vast darkness between worlds, two civilizations were about to discover that the greatest diplomatic breakthrough of all was written not in treaties or trade agreements, but in the language of the heart,